Okay, here's Kerrigan Skelly, and I just want to comment on some of the comments. This is his video, as you can see at the bottom there, Calvinism and Sovereignty. And this is 26 minutes into that video.
John chapter 1 verse 5, which says, "This is the message we have heard from him and declare to you, that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all." So if there's no darkness in God at all, then how is it possible that God could create evil in the moral sense, a moral evil sense? Or how can God decree evil? If there's no evil within him, no darkness, no evil darkness within him, it's only light or holiness within him, how can he possibly decree evil? And if he can't tempt anyone, nor is he tempted by anyone, if he can't sin, then how is he decreeing or ordaining that people sin?
Okay, two thoughts here. One, where did sin and evil come from? We know before anything was created, the only thing that exists was God. And there was no sin there, or evil there. So it came after the creation. Was God perfectly capable of creating without sin? Was that a possibility? Since you're, Mr. Skelly, since you are not an open theist, God knew that sin was going to come, did he not? Did he know that Satan was going to, develop pride in his heart? Did he know that he was going to tempt Adam and Eve in the garden and cause them to rebel? Did he know this ahead of time? Okay, and since you're not an open theist, you would have to say yes, he knew that. So then the question comes, well, why didn't he prevent it? Could he have prevented it? Could he have not made Satan to begin with? Could he have made sure that he wasn't in the garden? Could he have not created Adam and Eve? I mean, there's all kinds of realms of possibilities that God could have done to prevent them. We have cases in Scripture where God did keep people from sinning. I'm thinking of, I can't remember exactly who it was. It was one of the kings when Abram was carrying Sarah, and he told him, he lied and said that Sarah was his sister. So this guy took her in, was basically courting her, and God came to him in a dream and told him that she was Abram's wife, and the king was deathly scared, and God said, "I kept you from sinning." So we have cases where God is capable of doing such. So your question here about how can God, who is perfect and holy, does not tempt anyone and cannot tempt anyone, how is it that sin exists and evil? And, well, what about the story of Joseph in Genesis, culminating in Genesis 50? What you meant for evil, God meant for good. And God's purposes came about through the evil actions of people. The death of Christ is a supreme example. So, you ask these questions, it seems, out of ignorance, that you do not understand the full revelation of God, and you do not understand the character of God. You want to hang on to certain aspects of God without weighing them, without taking them in context of His total character. So the answers to your questions are right there in Scripture. The problem is you just don't want to accept them.
Not just in some circumstances, but in every single circumstance they sin, they're sinning because God decreed or ordained it or predetermined it from eternity past, unchangeably. So there's a problem with that. God can not have any darts in him at all if he's decreeing or ordaining unchangeably from eternity past all things, including all sin, whatsoever comes to pass. There's a big problem with that.
And also your understanding of sovereignty. God can do two things. A, He can actively do something, or B, He can merely allow something to come to pass. Either case, God is sovereign in the situation. Nothing can occur without God allowing it to do so. Like I've said before, to deny this, you would have to be an open theist. There's no other scriptural answer to answer this.
There is no evil in God. And because there's no evil in God, God cannot decree or ordain evil.
Okay, again, the Genesis account. Joseph and his brothers.
Then we have this issue of God being angry with the wicked every day. Psalm 7:11. Now, if God's angry with the wicked every day because of their wickedness, but God is decreeing, ordaining, or predetermining every little bit of wickedness they're doing, in every circumstance, every thought, word, deed, then is God now the author of his own anger?
Okay. I believe Mr. Skelly has mentioned before that he is a father. I myself am a father. And my children, I have to mainly say my son because he's fixing to be 4. And my daughter is just 4 months old, so she really doesn't do anything right now. But my son is in that knucklehead stage, the hangover of the terrible twos. And my son does things that are not good and make me angry, and things that I hate for him to do. But nonetheless, he's still my son. Now, does that change my relationship with him because he does evil and bad things? No, it doesn't. Now, that's just our human relationships are just a very poor analogy, to the relationship of creator to creature. But some of the principles are intact.
I mean, think about this. If you're angry about something, but yet you're the one who's causing this thing to happen, that's causing your anger, wouldn't you then stop this thing from happening if you had the power to do so?
Again, going to Scripture. Was God pleased with Joseph's brothers lying and throwing him in a ditch and selling him into slavery? Was God pleased with that? The answer, of course, would be no. However, God allowed it to happen because he had a plan and a purpose in the end.
If it makes you angry, of course you would. And even beyond God being angry at the wicked, in Psalm 5:5 and Psalm 11:5, God makes it clear that he hates the sinner. Doesn't just hate the sin and love the sinner. He hates the sinner. And of course, not in the sense that we would hate the sinner. But I'm not going to get into that issue. You can watch my video called God Hates Sinners if you want to learn more about what it means when Psalm 5:5 and Psalm 11:5 was that God hates sinners. But the fact is, God does hate sinners, according to the Bible. So God's not only the author of his own anger because of the wickedness of the wicked and him decreeing or ordaining them unchangeably from eternity past, he's also the author of his own hatred for sinners because he's decreeing them to be the way they are. Psalm 11:5, I believe, says, "One who loves violence, my soul hates." So if he's causing them to do violence, then he's the author of his hatred for them as well, because he's ordaining their violence. So now,
okay. God does decree whatsoever shall come to pass. Ephesians 1:11. You can't get around that unless you twist it. Okay? So then we have to, we have to look for the answer in all of Scripture. And just because God allows evil to exist does not mean that he is making the evil to exist. There is a difference.